Well, that's part of the very long hours of deliberation over that bill, which was eventually passed. Senator Sekibo is a representing Rivers State in the National Assembly. The bill was passed after careful consideration of each of the clauses. The Senate had also met behind closed doors with the Minister of State for Petroleum, NNPC, and the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mila Kiari. The passage of the bill comes exactly 13 years after it was first presented to the National Assembly in 2008. On 28th September 2020, President Muhammadu Buhari presented the bill to the National Assembly for reconsideration. The bill seeks to introduce changes to the governance, administrative, regulatory, and fiscal framework of the Nigerian oil and gas industry in order to ensure transparency, strengthen the governing institutions, and attract investment capital, among other objectives. But the President of the Senate says the Senate expects President Buhari to sign the bill as soon as it is transmitted. Let's talk more about this. What are the meaning of the clauses, and what does it translate to the communities, to Nigerians, to the economy, and all what have you? I'm being joined tonight on the program by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Mr. NNPC. Your Excellency, many thanks for joining us tonight, and I must say congratulations to you, because in your time, there is a passage of the PIB which for several years it has eluded this nation, and there's been a lot of debate over it. But now that it's been passed, let me get your view. How do you feel tonight, and how does that come to you?
To Nigeria, because from Nigeria, 20 years, we have introduced uncertainty in the investment environment, in the oil and gas investment environment in Nigeria. Today, we have started the process of eliminating that uncertainty. And once we introduce certainty, we expect that investors will come into Nigeria, and we expect to see an exponential growth in investment in the oil industry. For about 20 years now, investment in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria has been stunted. A few years ago, $50 billion was invested in oil and gas in Africa. Only $3 billion of that came to Nigeria. And that was because the Nigerian investment environment was uncertain, in addition to other problems in Nigeria around security. So with this, we believe that with the certainty that has been introduced by the passage of the PIB, we believe that there will be a lot more investment, a lot more funds attracted to Nigeria.
One area that perhaps I like you, there is always, in every legislation, there is always a political twist to some of these things. Have you gotten the commitment of President Buhari on this bill? Does it capture all of those things he wanted? Because when last year he approached the National Assembly with an amended version of this bill, it has been touched up by the National Assembly. But the version in which the conversation you had with the National Assembly, yourself and Mr. Mila Kiari earlier today, the version that is coming out today, does it meet the aspiration of President Buhari? Because at the end of the day, he will have to assent to it.
Well, I believe so. This has been a product of extensive engagement with all stakeholders. The difference that we introduced in this, at this time was engagement with industry and engagement with all other stakeholders in the oil and gas sector. So I believe that this bill will actually meet the aspirations of all stakeholders in the oil and gas sector. also, it will, I believe, meet the expectation of President Muhammadu Buhari, who you know is the Minister of Petroleum. We drafted this bill from the executive and sent it to the National Assembly, and we've been in constant engagement with the National Assembly, and so we are mostly agreed on all the points that were passed today.
I mean, for someone who has also followed up on this for several years, there is a huge political will to make this happen, considering what the kind of disappointment that has come in between the passage and the drafting of this bill over the last few years. But let me touch on some of the details and the technicalities of this bill. There is a clause there that states that there will be two regulators. You know, we have one regulator, which is the DPR. There will be two regulators as being proposed by this bill, one for the upstream, one for the downstream. Many investors are already complaining about too many regulators and bottlenecks. Why are you increasing regulators, thereby increasing the kind of bottlenecks that investors are saying is a problem to them?
We're not really necessarily increasing regulators at all. This country has focused overly on the development of oil with the exclusion of gas. This bill seeks to actually focus development also in the midstream and on the downstream. Before now, the DPR was the regulator for the upstream and the downstream. The midstream was more or less absent. And frankly, we believe that a big regulator will become too big and you will not be able to span the whole sector. For example, you have so many filling stations in Nigeria, so many thousands of filling stations. You will agree with me that it is difficult for one regulator to be regulating both the upstream and be regulating what is happening, be following what is happening in each and every filling station in Nigeria. We believe that it will be too big for one regulator. The whole gamut of the industry, the value chain of the industry will be too big for one regulator. So what we have done is to focus on focus the industry on two regulators. One to take care of the upstream, which is going to be the Upstream Regulatory Commission, and the other regulator to focus squarely on developing the midstream and the downstream. And we believe that this will be more optimal because it will be more efficient. But if you have a big regulator, it may not be as efficient as we expect it to be.
But the issue now is that Nigeria is supposed to be in tune with what is happening around the world. This is a moment where the rest of the world are cutting down on the bottlenecks. And Nigeria is now proposing a law that will now create more bottlenecks. So if you create this regulator, how can you assure Nigerians that there won't be frustration to investors with bottlenecks?
No, I don't know. No, Shehu, I don't know what you mean by bottleneck. It's not as if you finish with the upstream regulator and you are to move from there to this, the midstream and downstream regulator. No, if you are an upstream operator, you go to the upstream regulator. And if you are a downstream midstream operator, you go to the midstream regulator. It is, in fact, introducing more efficiency. It is not introducing a bottleneck at all. We believe that if you have a single regulator that is too big, an unwieldy single regulator, it will actually be the introduction of bottlenecks. But in this case, we feel to make it more optimal and efficient, let us focus the regulators. So one regulator focused on the upstream sector, the other regulator focused on the midstream and downstream. I think this is even for efficiency. It is not to introduce bottlenecks at all.
Aramco, the equivalent of the NNPC in Saudi Arabia, the nation of Saudi Arabia sold 10% of its shares in Aramco and listed it on the stock exchange. It's being tagged as very successful. Why are you not selling a good stake of the NNPC to Nigerians for sake of transparency? And why is it not now listed on the stock exchange? Are you thinking in that line? And if that's so, when will that happen?
Look, let us walk before we run. Right now, what the law seeks to achieve is to move NNPC from a corporation, from a parastatal of government, to make it a karma company. Let it run commercially. And then, going forward, we can think of what to do with it. Whether we're going to go public and sell, of course, float the company like, of course, Saudi Aramco did. That is for the future. But for now, this is a major leap from moving NNPC from being a parastatal of government to becoming a karma company. At least let us savour this victory first before we introduce other levels.
I played a sound bite earlier on when the lawmakers were debating the issue of the percentage payment to host communities and all of that. Can you explain to us, Honorable Minister, the 2.5% payment to host communities by the operating companies? How is that going to work? Won't it bring more problem? I'm looking at it from what we currently have. There's been crisis in the refining areas in Nigeria, the exploring areas in Nigeria. How do you apportion the percentage in these communities?
Well, of course, structures will be already prescribed in the law that will be formed by the settler. The settler will be part of the process. It will determine the communities within which he is operating, because he knows the communities that he dealt with before he started operating. And of course, they will all the communities will come together and set up this structure to manage this fund. Before now, the problem, it was not a legal process at all. It was just to sign MOUs with communities, MOUs that were mostly not fulfilled by the companies. And of course, you couldn't take them to court because they were just memorandum of understanding. But now you have a legal framework. So there is money provided from the operational cost, from the operational spending of the previous year. So everybody knows what the money available is like. And then, of course, this structure that we formed between the companies and the communities will now look after this money and focus the development on the communities. Before now, the problem is there's been a lot of expenditure on communities. Of course, the NDDC is one of such commissions that have been set up by government to develop communities in the oil-producing areas. But some of these commissions are not targeted at the communities where oil is produced. For example, the problem can be in the west, but the direction of the NDDC might be in the east. So it is not targeted at the host communities. But of course, this fund will now be focused on developing the communities, so it will actually hit where the shoe is pinching. The companies know exactly where their problem is. The companies know where their production is coming from, and they will focus it on developing those communities, and I believe that we'll be able to achieve very good results this time.
Just for a moment, I'll still come back to the PIB. There are a few issues on the issues of climate change. The 90 released a report saying that Nigeria loses several billions of dollars for the non-passage of the bill. But now, good news, I would like to know which areas Nigeria might be able to secure some of these funds that have been lost. But let me first and foremost, before I go into that, get your view on the issue of the subsidy. The federal government has spoken about the issue of subsidy and how inconvenient it is for Nigeria to continue paying subsidy on fuel. Are we expecting, because the Minister of Finance spoke about it today, that we can no longer conveniently pay subsidy on fuel, that we need to do something? When are we seeing the stoppage of the payment of subsidy? And with that, of course, naturally amount to increase in the pump price.
Of course, definitely, I have always said it everywhere, that is the way to go. Removal of subsidy is the way to go because subsidy is unsustainable. I believe that the people themselves that we are targeting to benefit are not the ones benefiting from subsidy. Subsidy is benefiting the elite, not the ordinary Nigerian. The fuels that the ordinary Nigerians use mostly are kerosene. The fuel that transport food for the ordinary Nigerian is diesel. And diesel and kerosene have been deregulated long ago. Unfortunately, the only fuel that has defied deregulation is petrol, which is the preferred fuel of the elite. But the government continued to pay a lot of money, trillions of naira, to subsidize this single product. I believe that this is not sustainable, and of course, it will go at some point because we cannot carry on forever. But of course, we know that this will come with pains, and that is why, at this moment, engagements are going on with stakeholders to look at how some of those pains that will come with the removal of subsidy will be alleviated. We are also looking at the possibility of introducing an alternative fuel. In fact, you talked about energy transition. We want to also introduce this transition in this sector so that people can have a choice of using either petrol for their cars or using gas for their cars. That process is also ongoing because we want to be able to have a critical mass of vehicles converted to utilizing auto gas, and then set up a critical mass of dispensing stations. And we believe that that will kickstart the whole process of choice and democratizing the fuel usage in Nigeria.
We're due for a break. We'll go on a break.
People can go, you can decide to use whatever you want. If you want PMS,
all right, Honorable Minister, we're due for a break, but when we come back, I have just one last question for you, and we'll wrap up with you on this PIB and the way forward for Nigeria. Stay with us, everyone. Don't forget, we have a governor with us on the program on similar issues. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Welcome back to the program. Our concluding moments with the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timi Silva. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your time tonight. The final question I have is a lot of talks about the non-transparency of the oil and gas sector and how it can be more transparent. In fact, there is always talk about how many billions Nigeria lose every other year due to the non-passage of the PIB. I remember in 2016, the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NITI, said that Nigeria has lost about 200 billion US dollars due to non-passage of the bill. In practical terms, if you can tell Nigerians tonight, Honorable Minister, if this bill is passed, how will Nigeria gain those monies?
I said it earlier, Shehu, that without this bill, there was so much uncertainty in the investment environment in Nigeria. So we couldn't attract a lot of investors. Let's take it. Let's take an example. We were able to discover within a very short time, between 2002 to 2007, our reserve base grew from about 22 billion to about 37 billion barrels. And between 2007, when the process of amending our laws began, we lost investment, and we have only been able to grow our reserves by about 500 million barrels between 2007 and today. That tells you that not much investment was coming. Even the IOCs that are already in Nigeria were not investing in Nigeria because they took a sit-down-look approach. Hello?
Please
Hello?
go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, if you remember, we had bid rounds in 2005 and bid rounds in 2007. The IOCs that were in Nigeria did not participate in those bid rounds because the investment environment was uncertain. So that tells you how much investment we lost. So with the PIB passed, you have now introduced certainty. People can look at the fiscals, they can do their numbers, investors will come. So in practical terms, this is how we lost investment, because a lot of people who would have come in with foreign direct investment to invest in the oil and gas sector did not come because our fiscal environment was uncertain. They didn't know where we are going with the laws, so everybody was just watching. Today, we have passed this law.
All right.
Anybody from where they are can sit back and look at the fiscal environment, look at it, put their numbers together, and decide on investing in Nigeria. And this is the win that we've been able to achieve today.
Honorable Minister for State for Petroleum Resources, I must say congratulations again on this feat that we have achieved as a nation, passing this PIB, and we hope that better days are ahead for the nation. Thank you so much, Your Excellency Chief Trimipe Silva, for talking to us right here on Channels Television.